One. Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Marketing. My name is Kevin Britz. I'm executive coach, trainer, and international leadership facilitator and host of the Lunchtime series where we add value to people's lives happening every day at 12 on ebizradio.com. Beyond Sales Only won't be joining us as he now officially has his own radio show. So check it out on eBiz Radio. But we do have a new expert who is joining us for the Lunchtime segment. It's marketing and communications specialist, Craig Pagely. Craig, how are you doing?
I'm well, and you, Kevin? Great. Happy Monday.
Yes, happy Monday, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for putting your spot down in the show, and I'm really excited to be joining and chatting to you about what we are today. But before we get to that, don't you want to just tell us more about you, more about what it is you do, and sort of what we are going to be chatting about today?
Great. So, Kevin, firstly, thanks for inviting me to join your show and for providing me with this opportunity. I've been in radio silence for a little while, so it's really good to get the chance to participate in the pod space again, and hopefully this is a catalyst to kickstart me from writing and contributing to some publications again. So good on you for that. About myself. So I grew up in Durban, in and around Durban, and I spent many years schooling, married, divorced, had kids, all in Durban. Obtained my Bachelor of Architecture degree from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and very fortunate on the back of that to actually spend 2 years working in the UK as an architect in training. Was really a great privilege. I then came back to South Africa and then worked in Durban and Johannesburg for a couple of years thereafter. But that experience in London really just sort of entrenched the love affair that I have with the city, and it really drew me back there many years ago, many years in succession, to the point that I was fortunate enough to actually spend another 2 years more recently working with the Brand Union, formerly Brand Union, now part of Super Union, working in London. And I've spent at least the past 20 years visiting London, a minimum of once or twice a year from a work point of view, participating in conferences and things like that. And unfortunately, COVID unhinged that this last year. And I really aim to get back there as quickly as I can this year when the borders reopen. I also sat for my MBA at the Gordon Institute of Business Science in 2000, being part of the inaugural year. It was quite an interesting decision to walk onto a piece of land where a building didn't exist yet, and to be sold on the vision of Nick Benedell and those that had exited Wits Business School to start Gibbs. And that was actually quite an amazing journey. And that really allowed me to mix with the right people, as MBAs in many instances do. And whilst on the MBA, I actually got poached by guys from KSTP, which then became the Brand Union, to join their business because they actually had a set of architects running brand projects and they wanted me to head up that division. So nice segue from architecture into branding on the back of really understanding the nuances through the business school. So what do? Well, I've got a real passion for integrated communications, Kevin, and I think my experience as an architect has allowed me to understand the concept of space, the concept of how communications works within the physical environment as well, and how comms needs to come to life in the streets, on street poles, in all manners of engagement with the client, including in the retail environment. And I've developed quite a nice, unique offering through those particular years of experience, and been very fortunate again, because that was able to be honed over a 10-year period where I worked within WPP, Brand Union, both here and in London. I worked within the Interpublic Group, FCB, Johannesburg, and I worked within the Dentsu Aegis network on the media side, running Posterscope, SSA, and being part of the integration team. And that definitely brought me the opportunity to continue my exposure and experience, having worked across 6 Pan-African regions and 8 Pan-European regions. And, I'm often asked what would be my best career achievement. And I think, being able to work on the Vodafone, run the Vodafone and Canon global brands from London across the European region. Phenomenal experience, and really helped me sort of chart my way to where I am currently. What am I going to speak about today?
Yeah, I'm so keen at because I find what you mentioned about space and how to use space in terms of marketing and communication. I don't think many people realize it, and it's a consideration that has to be considered in terms of how do you then communicate yourself as a brand. So, I mean, it's an amazing angle to really take onto to the marketing environment. But one of the things that have stood out in 2021 is the whole debacle. But I'm going to let you sort of preface that, because I think people are really freaking out a little bit, and I think there's more to it than they realize.
Yes, there is. But just to go back to space one step, if you don't mind, I think what's quite interesting, one must give kudos to the international automotive brands. I think they were decades ahead of really understanding the concept of experiential branding, from understanding the process of getting you through the billboard to the newspaper to a digital experience, walking in through the front door, getting to understand the entire shopper journey within that environment as well, and taking the experience of a car test to handover. They're really at the forefront of that, and I think maybe one day we can actually pick up on that as one of the key topics to see how that has been influenced by the likes of COVID, but what is digital doing to actually enhance that even more. But yes, in light of digital, I think the hottest topic in the digital world at the moment, I believe, is the issue around WhatsApp's privacy policy update and the threat to users' data with parent company Facebook. So yeah, I've done some interesting reading on it, and we've had some interesting chats amongst our own social groups as well to see who's ready to flock out of here onto the other platforms. Unfortunately, I think some sense and sensibility prevails that people have slowed down in wanting to rush away because they need to do a lot of background work. You can't just jump from one to the other because there's some very, very distinct reasons, which I'm going to pick up on and cover in this conversation with you. So I think, yeah, go for it, Kevin.
Sorry. So, I mean, and that's what we are going to be chatting to today. The WhatsApp debacle, I think what people are not realizing is, how much of our information is already scrutinized and already on all our social media platforms, from, I think that what we're not realizing is, at this point, we're just actively going, yeah, okay, cool. We're giving you access. You already have access to everything else. We're just kind of consenting that you've got access to this as well. But I mean, don't you want to sort of flesh that out for us and tell us more about, the integrations of the platforms and how they, I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know that WhatsApp is actually owned by Facebook.
Yeah. I think that's a really good place to start, because at the end of the day, in reality, folk don't know that WhatsApp. Many folk don't know that WhatsApp is owned by Facebook, nor do they know that Messenger is owned by Facebook. Okay, They're probably more aware of Messenger being in the space than WhatsApp, but most definitely Facebook as a holding company has a broad range of products, even the likes of Oculus being the AR, VR proposition that sits in the retail space, is a key product and proposition within the Facebook environment. So really getting to understand the nuances behind that is a key thing for us to cover. So if you allow me to, as I say, just dive into a little bit of this. Okay, so to set the record straight and just state the obvious again, most of us are aware that Facebook, at least WhatsApp, has announced a set of fairly controversial changes to its privacy policy. While always positioning itself as a secure and private application, justified through its end-to-end message encryption, the reference to WhatsApp users' personal information possibly being shared with parent company Facebook really has people hot under the collar and jumping ship unnecessarily. The platforms that they're moving to are little known to me, or were little known to me until I did this background research to provide some context to the conversation, and names that, in all honesty, I had actually not heard about at all. Okay, so let's jump into that. So again, I really want to get to unpack what this imminent threat people perceive Facebook is about. Okay, so apart from not knowing how their personal information will be used by Facebook once the proposed changes have been implemented, WhatsApp users are also rather frustrated with the manner in which this announcement was made. It is very much a scripted dictatorial message delivery. You got to do X by Y, and if by that date it hasn't happened, we're kicking you off the platform. So there was no consultation or notification to gain some insight and input from the community. And there's billions of users of this platform around the world. So you would think that maybe a little bit of sensitivity could come to play in that regard. Another key problem is not knowing how the information will be used by Facebook once the proposed changes are in place. The key thing here is that WhatsApp is encrypted end to end. People know that their data is safe. They know that the messages can never be read in a WhatsApp environment. However, in a Facebook environment, there's absolutely no guarantee of that. And the conversation is such that it clearly states, we will use something that data to do deep mining to bring you some other value proposition around. So automatically, we know that the information that was personally protected on one end is going to be open and used on another end. And that in itself is worth a really big conversation. So I just want to quote a wonderful article I picked up on the independent.co.uk site, which states, as part of the Facebook family of companies, WhatsApp receives information from and shares information with this family of companies. Well, is this really that outrageous? And why is WhatsApp wanting to change its privacy policies? The key thing here is the trigger. It needs to generate revenue through its businesses and shopping services. And how will it do this? Well, through advertising, which will come in through the various Facebook groups and product platforms. And that really is the core of it at the end of the day.
Yeah,
but again, this is, go for it.
On that point, Craig, I think one of the things that we as the users of the platform, what a lot of people don't realize at this point is it's not a logical business model to have an application that is free and used by billions of people for you to not monetize it some way. So I mean, I don't know of a platform that would do that would have that kind of pulling power and just go, oh no, we just, the platform there is for love and charity. It would just be insane for them to not want to say, well, how do we monetize it? And how do we actually use the data and use the information that we have to make money out of it? So instinctively you kind of go, I'm like, that's a logical process. So giving your information and, consenting to it just means that they might, through whatever algorithm and whatever they're doing from their end, which I know nothing about, probably finds keywords and searches and shares and likes and stuff and information and groups that's created around stuff that people are really curious about. And that way they can use that information to advertise and market more, so the process of that makes logical sense. And I'm not sure why a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah, it confounds me immensely as well. And there's two critical points here. For me, firstly, is on the Facebook side, people are willing to share from the depths of their souls to the color of their toenails. Okay, and they understand that there's a messenger space as well, and they're doing the same thing. So those two integrated. Within that space, there are a lot of algorithms running on the back end, and they're serving ads relative to the greatest nail polish for the color of your toes, or how to fix a broken heart kind of thing. So they're actually accepting and participating in that kind of behavior on one end of a platform, the mother company, but they're not willing to participate in a fragment of that moving over in being dealt with in the same way. It's really quite a weird thing for me. And another anecdote here is that let's look at Discovery Group, for instance, South Africa. Okay, medical aids. Now you've got the Discovery Bank. Then you've got Discovery Insurance. In fact, let's look at any financial institution. All products, you've got a home loan, you've got a credit card, you've got your savings account, you've got an investment account. All of those product divisions that have been operating as single P&Ls and silos are also now switching information across the organization to try and extract some further value to cross-sell you in every one of those environments. And guess what? People are accepting of that. People are accepting of the fact that you've got a Discovery medical aid and you've been cross-sold into an insurance policy and you've been cross-sold into a top-up medical aid product. Where's the backlash when it comes to things like that? So there's, in most instances, there's a comment made in the greater stratosphere. Somebody's picked up on that, and then there's this groundswell of negativity that comes around it. And I think Facebook haven't necessarily done themselves any justice in the way they've behaved in the past as this, all ubiquitous superpower of a platform. They've done some bad things with user data in the past. So in a way, it's almost expected that there is a bit of negativity. However, the end point to drive a better value proposition, particularly on the business users, because this is really where the key conversation exists around, is get to understand the user, get to understand their needs, bring in really good, tailored, nurtured product and service propositions from the partner platforms and deliver something to the business community more effectively. I don't have a problem with that, to tell the honest truth.
I mean, it just, when you think of it, from a business model perspective, and you say, well, how do you monetize? How do you cross sell and advertise to information and people that you're already connected to? It just makes logical sense. But now, one of the obvious or key questions that associated to this whole conversation are the four key brands that are associated, being don't you want to speak to us about those and a little bit more of who they are and what they are and all about?
Yes, thanks. So the four key brands, WhatsApp, and then obviously the association with Facebook. But the other two brands that are really gaining all of the traction are Telegram, which, when I saw that, I thought, am I reading this correctly? And then a brand that really is the one that I'm watching carefully is a brand called Signal. So if you take the four and we actually just move Facebook aside and we just focus on three, WhatsApp, Telegram, and Signal, I'll give you a bit of a comparative between the three, and one can there really get to a point of asking the question, why switch at all? So there's actually been a noticeable migration away from WhatsApp to Telegram, interestingly. And yes, South African users are also switching to Telegram ahead of Signal in this particular country. And there's some interesting little quotes and articles that I can pick up on to validate that. So I'm just going to pick up to Signal. So Signal is topping the chart on Apple's App Store, interestingly. And the downloads are predominantly from India, interestingly. Now, if you look at the population of India, it takes one mass movement of a broad-based population to shift a trend immediately. So that's an interesting thing, is to actually see where it's emanating from. But here's the most interesting thing for me, is that Signal also offers the end-to-end encryption. But interestingly, WhatsApp runs off the end-to-end encryption platform generated by Signal, which which I don't think many people understood at all. So Signal's end-to-end protocol is actually used by WhatsApp, and it also has a number of features that WhatsApp offers, but it's group video calling is still at the beta stage, whereas WhatsApp's much more advanced, and it also lacks some of the convenience of WhatsApp. It is a bit clunky, and it is a bit limiting in its use. And it does, however, offer the same in terms of ability to back up your chats to third-party services, Google Drive, iCloud, etc., etc. But here's where I just want to pause for a minute and say, this is actually where the breach is potentially the biggest threat, irrespective of which platform you're working on. The minute you're moving into the cloud space, security solution vulnerability is at its highest. So Signal's applying the same principle. They're as vulnerable as WhatsApp in that particular instance as well. The Telegram platform, for those that didn't know, is actually created in Russia many, many years ago. In fact, in 2013, they had a bit of negativity associated with themselves. But there's another interesting layer to Telegram, and I think these guys are really great futurist thinkers, where they were actually developing a cryptocurrency around the platform. But that was outlawed because they were offering it into the USA, and the Federal Reserve stopped that because they hadn't had all the laws in place there. But some of the proof points are these. 21% of users are shifting to Telegram in Latin America. There's been an 8% shift in the MENA region, 38% from Asia. Now, if you look at the majority of folk moving onto Signal from an Indian point of view, and another 38% of Asia onto Telegram, take that as a combined collective, you see the absolute dent that will make in WhatsApp, and therefore the revenues of Facebook and WhatsApp combined. So critical reevaluation of thinking underway by Facebook and WhatsApp at the moment. And 27% from Europe are considering a switch away from WhatsApp as well. So the European one is the most interesting one for me, where people have reacted, knee-jerk reaction, because actually in Europe, WhatsApp is not allowed to pass its information over to Facebook because they are protected by GDPR. So you actually want to be in Europe on a WhatsApp platform, and you will have the greatest security of all of these platforms throughout the world, because there is a really good stringent framework of control and monitoring in the GDPR space. So, from that point of view, people are reacting without understanding the need to do a bit of research and validate where they need to be going. So from a South African point of view, sharp increase in Telegram from WhatsApp. And this is validated in an interesting report by Andrew Wilson, the CEO of Lucid View, a South African company that provides internet providing solutions, content filters, saturation management, etc. And they've got about 70% of their customer base as South Africans in the messenger app space. And they're seeing a substantial shift as the South African audience into the Telegram space. I think that will reverse.
Sorry, I'm just thinking, so in terms of market share, isn't it really maybe a really good thing that this has happened, in terms of saying actually there are other brands and other competitors out there who might give WhatsApp a run for their money, and putting it out there and people really shifting to a different brand could possibly create a really good competitive edge space for messaging apps like these.
I think that's a really great statement, and in support of that, Kevin, I think it's important for the listeners to understand that it's not really just WhatsApp, Telegram, and Signal that are in the instant messaging space. We've got WeChat, we've got Viber, there's Kik, there's Line, there's even Google Hangouts, the platform we're using right now, and if it still does exist in a few years, Microsoft's Skype. So there collectively, there's probably 10 brands that we've mentioned. Okay, obviously each brand is at a different stage of its life cycle. Microsoft Skype is really beginning to dive straight to the bottom of the pool. Google Hangouts, I believe, will be another one of the brands that is on a trajectory upwards. And when you look at all the benefits of the Google Hangout proposition, if you can start pulling some of the other value drivers at the likes of WhatsApp Business, and the real-time buying proposition in a Facebook, WhatsApp environment, plugging into the conversation you and I are having right now. Imagine if in this conversation you said, Craig, this is what I've just seen. This is what I'm talking about. You open a shared screen, you show it to me. I go, I want it, I click, and you do an in Google Hangout purchase right there and then.
Yeah, exactly.
You've just come back from an amazing cruise of the Caribbean. Not that could happen at this point, but you go, here's my photos, here's the tourist operator's details. And in our conversation while you're sharing on that shared screen, embedded in there is the payment gateway, is the booking engine. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's, the point to, it's something I shared on Facebook. I was going, you know what, the reality of the situation, guys, is Facebook already has so much information about me as an individual, everyone as individuals on these platforms. I'm just going to simply join the other platforms to kind of see, let's see which ones work better. Let's see who's got a bit of an edge on the other one, and sort of create a bit of competition, because by doing that, I think brands start leveling up and they really start creating opportunities and offers that could be sort of market leaders, and
yes.
Right now, currently, Facebook and WhatsApp have been for so many years, have been the only platforms that people tend to refer to around social media, and there are others that are sort of creeping up. LinkedIn, for example, being a space where people are really connected in business, has really started solidifying their position as a business connecting platform. And I think, Twitter, for example, reaching the masses. It's we've seen some wonderful leaders in the world at the moment who do that, and famous people, lots of famous people do it. But each platform really is reaching their market in a big way, and I think the fact that there is a bit of competition on the horizon, I think that's really a fantastic, for everyone using it.
Yeah, I like your LinkedIn reference. I really do, Kevin, because if there's a platform where you are revealed more than anywhere else in the world, it's on that platform. Your entire CV is exposed.
Yeah.
From where you've studied, what you did, how you're doing it, you can get cross-reference straight away. You can see if folk are lying or not. So the analytics of understanding of your life in a business sense is phenomenal, but you're there for the world to see. The beauty about that is, again, LinkedIn is able to really run some great scripts on the back end to get to understand the opportunity for brands coming in to buy in the LinkedIn space. And sponsored content in LinkedIn is probably one of the best buys in the business platform. Is everybody up in arms and screaming about that, and the basis that it's doing it and understanding where you are in your life cycle and your needs? No. So why the cry on the Facebook side? Another point on Facebook. So Facebook already sends you requests to connect with people you may know and to buy products you may want. Well, how are they doing it? They're working with data on the back end, and they're doing cross-pollination into the depths of fields of linkages that they're able to work with. What's different from that to bringing you into offering you a business proposition that can add value to your life? How many people are up in arms about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's that there's actually a social media program on Netflix at the moment where they look at, I don't know if you've seen it, I'm not sure the name now, but they actually look at social media, and part of what they do is recognize how humans respond to certain what do you call it? So certain behaviors and certain patterns that we tend to get into. And they know every time you like this type of video or you like this type of information, they will invariably make sure that more of that type of information, YouTube does exactly the same, so how to recommend content, so it just plays back into no, like we have to consider it's a business model. They're using it specifically, strategically for their business.
Yeah, yeah. It's a social dilemma. Another movie that's on Netflix really obviously covered off on some of the negativity of that, and a really, really great statements made in that movie. But again, to pick up on that, what about your e-commerce behavior? You've been tracked every time you go online, brand preference, category interests, all serving messages of similar brands. Next time you open your web browser, where's the outcry and closing down of Google? No, it isn't there. Yes, maybe we've become more familiar on how to clear out our cache and eliminate the searches for the day and at least get rid of some of the cookies. I think, as people become more familiar with the net impact and effect of what Facebook is trying to achieve, you'll get to understanding how to do self-management and regulation and maybe be more comfortable with the platform moving forward. But just quickly on the topic of cookies, what I found quite interesting, Kevin, is I've done a lot of testing of South African websites versus international websites. And what's really great about the international websites is they clearly, when your announcement comes up, do you accept the cookies, et cetera, and you click on there, find out more, they clearly give you the 4 options. And those 4 options being the absolute necessary cookies, okay? The other options obviously being the marketing analytics cookies. Then there's generally 4 absolute necessary, and the other 3s are all opt-out ability. Now the international sites allow you to click to close off on that opt-out, the majority of those. In South Africa to date, I've not yet come across a single site that offers that option. What it does, it goes into a 4-page drivel of what they're going to do and who you need to contact and what legal you need to understand to be able to stop them using your information in a way. And they all make these promises of, they won't do it for this and won't do it for that. But nowhere have I, and I've got screen grabs to share to prove what I've said.
Yeah.
Nowhere do they give you the physical chance to click on a button, say, I'm opting out of marketing analytics. I'm opting out of the other 2 spectrums. I can't remember what they are at this point.
Yeah.
And that is something that really we need to get to brands in this country to say, if you're going to do it with a thorough conviction of what you're trying to promote and give folk the opportunity. Don't just stick a sticker on it and make out as if you're being correct and caring, but actually on the back end, you're still raping the information and trying to use it in a way without permission.
Craig, so in sort of the big question, what do we do? Which one do we use? What's going to be the best? Like, what do we do? Which app is going to be the one that makes it happen for us?
WhatsApp.
Still.
From all of the readings, the ubiquitous WhatsApp is still the most resolute in the private capacity. People are not changing. WhatsApp as a private messenger into an encrypted app, there's absolutely no need to change. On a WhatsApp for business app, there is a bit more visibility, but when it moves into the Facebook space and you start getting the integrations, yes, understandable, there's a lot more visibility. None of these other apps have said, hey guys, we're never going to integrate across our platform with other group companies. None of them have said that yet. And if they do say that, then they're probably lying because, again, the comment you made is, how does a free-to-use messenger platform sustain itself financially to ensure it's got constant development, enhancement, and relevance to its user base? That costs money. Money comes from what? From conducting different business propositions and from advertising. And if any of those businesses can clearly say, we've got enough money to burn in our group holding company from the other propositions that we have to sustain a free personal chat space in longevity, well, that's great. That really is. Somebody please tell me which company that is, because I'm going to watch them very, very carefully. But as it stands now, from a technology point of view, from the ability of the platforms to work the way they do, the integration into a product suite, which includes the likes of Facebook and the Oculus and Messenger. I really think that Facebook as a company is more resolute and tried and tested and knocked into shape than the others are.
Yeah. Great. So to end off today's conversation, what do you think the advice is for anyone that really needs to make some consideration? If you could give us some pointers on just what we should be considering and really being aware of heading into 2021 and deciding on which platform to use, why to use it, etc. What would that be?
Yeah, Kevin, I think that the key thing for me is people need to do their homework. That's just a reality. We dive into things too quickly. That's, again, you get the opportunity and you dive straight into something. But what do? You go to social media where, yes, reference and recommendation is in place, but you pick up on the negativity and you run with it. Actually, what you got to do is you got to take a step back and you got to really get to understand there's two principles in respect of your personal data. There's the collection of the data and there's the handling of your personal data. And we all know that marketers are often first to collect your personal data because they know how to use it and they'll know if they want to use it, okay? Or if they can use it, because some personal data doesn't necessarily give them the ability to offer a tailored solution to the way you want it. But you really do need to understand who controls your data and who processes your data, and specifically in respect of advertising. But then also, more of us need to be familiar with the Personal Protection Act, POPI Act in South Africa. It's an act that helps define the lawful processing of your information and data. And actually, Kevin, it's a really well-constructed app for the country. It really is. It came into effect in July 2020, and it's structured around 8 key principles that the data process flow must adhere to. And each of those principles clearly encourages responsibility, security, and consent to use of the personal information. And if those 8 principles are not adhered to, you have recourse to really challenge the brands and marketers that are using your information correctly. Yeah. If engaging in cross-border, and this is a very important piece, and it pertains to the comment we made earlier around WhatsApp and Facebook not being able to roll out the security changes in the EU. GDPR is an incredibly robust regulatory framework that works across the whole of the EU. And it is probably the most stringent on how information is used and isn't used. And for instance, going into Europe, you travel into London, use your credit card in London, use your credit card in Paris, use your credit card in Spain. Each of those regions in themselves are not allowed to cross-share the information from one market to the next, irrespective if it's the same brand you've shopped at in each of those 3 environments. The point of origination of the data collection and source remains relative to that information. But you as a South African are actually the owner of your own data, and they need to get permission from you to use your data in those environments, but they can't use your data if you've granted it in Spain into Italy and the UK. So we need to know about the laws that help us protect our own personal data. Don't take it for granted. But we should also start by revisiting this year around all of our online presence. Yeah. I really think we need to purge all of our history, clearing out your cache, clearing out your search history across all your browsers and devices, because obviously search history is connected through that, and start again. Set the frameworks of communication that you're willing to participate in. Clear out those other 3 options that I speak about, okay? The elimination of third-party cookies and tags is inevitably going to impact negatively on the marketing world. However, that forces some kind of innovation to really understand what your purchase behavior is at the point of purchase, to bring another value driver there and work with you to add greater value in the conversation. Yeah. But yeah, work to eliminate that digital footprint and start again and set the parameters of what you want your digital footprint to do, and regularly go in and clear it out. I do it on a monthly basis. And in fact, I actually went as deep as I could into WhatsApp and Facebook just to see how deep the use of my information is. And I must tell you one thing, I was pleasantly surprised. So I actually have no worry at all about using Facebook and WhatsApp, because the further I went down into the quality controls and use of my information, not use. And I ran a script, a 2-year script, which they sent you in a CSV file, and a report for every single one of the sites you've been in, purchases you've made over a period of time. There's a full history that they run on that. And I can sit here rest assured that I was comfortable that the information that was fed back to me by those two organizations didn't infringe on my rights. But make sure that you understand that, but let's clear it out and start from a zero base moving forward.
Fantastic. Craig, I love it. I think, it's just to have someone who has the insight and in the position that knowing this and what the stance are and looking at what the important factors are. I think that today's conversation will put a lot of people at ease and also give them some reference on what they could be researching and looking out for and finding out about and just some more insight. So thank you. That was fantastic. I know that you also mentioned that for next week, when we have our next chat, you've got some interesting information to share with us. Do you want to touch on that? And then lastly, just tell us where we can get a hold of you.
Oh, great. Thanks, Kevin. Yes. So whilst the topic starts in a negative space, I believe it's ended up in a positive space where people can just take a step back and self-actualize and set the framework of control in place. Next week is an incredibly exciting topic. I want to pick up on a phenomenal sets of reports that I'm getting called Brand Watch. It's business as referred to as the #1 digital consumer intelligence platform in the world, and it produces phenomenal insights on all things digital and social. And they've just released a report called the 2020 Brand Visibility Report, where they've analyzed 40 million images that contain logos from Twitter.
Wow.
So guaranteed the listeners are going to get in a fluster and hot under the collar again, because it's information that has been shared and you're using somebody's information. However, it's all anonymous, but remember, Twitter's shared in the public space, so that information is visible to all. And what they've done is they've analyzed those 40 million images, and they've been able to do a brand ranking of the brands of association that are represented in each of the images by those 40 million Twitter users. And that could be a brand on a t-shirt to a branded mug to a watch, to anything that's on display. And it's phenomenal insights, but there's a really beautiful message and how to use insights like that to actually shift the conversation and start bringing brands of association into the platforms. Like Facebook wants to use information to push through the product, brands can use the likes of Twitter and start targeting more directly into those environments. If it's not Twitter, surely somewhere else. But a really great set of analytics that have come out on these brands. It blew me away, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you.
It's amazing.
So where to get hold of me? You can LinkedIn, Craig Pagely, PAGE-LEE, Craig Pagely on LinkedIn. On Twitter, I'm CPL it's at CPL_Ignite. And then my email, cpagely@gmail.com. And there's no hyphen, it's just straight CPAGELEE@gmail.com. I'm busy working up on getting my inactive website up and running, but those are the 3 key platforms. And I'm constantly online, so you'll get to chat to me, definitely.
Craig, thank you for the insights. Thank you for the information. I think that's given us a good amount of information to go and consider, and definitely some stuff we can go and research and find out more about. And next week, the brand visibility report, that's going to be really exciting. But thank you for joining us. Thanks for joining us for the Lunchtime Marketing segment. And I will chat to you next week and look forward to it.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks again for the opportunity. See you next week.
Chat to you soon.
Bye.